Today we will consider our next theme, ontology, and the first part of this theme concerns the main issues of ontology. Let's begin with definition of the concept of ontology. Ontology, from Greek on, genitive ontos, means the existing, and the second part of this word, logos, means doctrine. Ontology is firstly the doctrine of the existing or of being as such, and secondly it is a section of philosophy, discipline of philosophy devoted to the study of the most general essences, of ultimate foundations and the fundamental principles of being, as well as categories, that is, the most general concepts that are said about the existing. What is the difference between existing and being? The existing, from the Greek ta onta, Latin ens or esse, this is either everything that exists or the mode of existence or being of the connective is, since any existing, regardless of the way of being, can be attributed to the connective is. Being, from the Greek einai, ousia, or Latin esse, this is presence in a state other than non-being, while an object that is in being can be thought as eternal, unchanging, and can be understood as being in the state of constant change, in the state of becoming and movement. Let's consider the main questions of ontology. There can be distinguished 5 main questions. Why is there something and not nothing? What is the first principle? Arche, the primordium, the first beginning of existing, of the existing. How many the first principles exist? What is the quality of the first principle? What is spirit? What is consciousness? Let's consider the fundamental question of metaphysics. This is the most important question, which was formulated by German philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. And this question was called by Martin Heidegger, another German philosopher, the fundamental question of metaphysics. This is the question why there is something rather than nothing, or the problem of the cause of being of all the existing. How many the first principles exist? There can be 3 possible answers. One principle is called monism. 2 principles is called dualism. Many principles is called pluralism. Let's consider definitions of these 3 types of answer. Monism is a philosophical position according to which the world is generated by one principle, either a spiritual principle which then gave rise to matter, or a material principle which then gave rise to consciousness. Dualism is a philosophical position according to which the world is generated by 2 independent principles, spiritual and material, neither of which preceded the other in time and did not produce it from itself. Pluralism is a philosophical position according to which the world is generated by a multitude of initial principles that primordially exist and are not reducible to each other. Here you can see the scheme of the relationship between monism, idealism, materialism, and 2 types of idealism, objective idealism and subjective idealism. Idealism, from the Greek word idea in Greek, is a philosophical position according to which a certain spiritual principle, for example, spirit, consciousness, or divine mind, or the absolute, etc., is the primary source that creates the world, including matter and all the existing. Let's consider two types of idealism. This is objective idealism and subjective idealism. Objective idealism is a philosophical position according to which there is a single and universal spiritual principle. For example, it can be called the God or the supreme power, the absolute, etc. This principle creates the world and does not depend on individual consciousness, which is a part of it. Subjective idealism. This is position according to which the only reality directly given to us, in the existence of which we can be sure, is our own I and an individual consciousness. Therefore, it is possible that the world around us is just a product of the activity of our individual consciousness. Let's consider the example of objective idealistic doctrine. This is doctrine of Plato, Greek philosopher. According to Plato, the one or the good is the idea, the main and the first idea, the highest among the other ideas, and precedes to them. The one is rather the beginning of ideas than an idea. The first emanation that comes from the one is nous, the cosmic divine mind that gives birth to the world soul. Ideas dwelling in nous are the true being, that is, intelligible prototypes of things of the sensible world. In the Dialogue Republic, Plato compares the good with the sun, since things are cognized only thanks to the good, from which they also receive being and essence. The good itself is beyond the essence and surpasses it in dignity and strength. Let's consider Solipsism. This is the extreme form of subjective idealism. The word solipsism origins from the Latin solus, the only one, and ipse, means itself. According to solipsism, everything that is considered to exist independently of individual subjective experience, including one's own body, the world around us, and other people, indeed most likely is only a part of this subjective experience. An example of subjective idealistic doctrine is the conception of the English philosopher David Hume. Another trend in monism is materialism. Materialism is the position according to which matter is the fundamental principle from which the world, including consciousness, arose. Among the materialistic doctrines is, for example, the dialectical materialism of the German philosophers Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. The main question of philosophy concerns the problem of the quality of the first principle. This problem can be formulated in the form of the question, what is primary, spirit or matter? Or in relation to a human being, what is primary, consciousness or body, brain? The next important problem, the problem of the nature of spirit, consciousness, thinking. This problem can be formulated in the form of question, what is spirit, consciousness, thinking by its nature? Another question connected with this problem is what is the relationship between spirit and matter, mind and body, or, in the words of René Descartes, in Latin, res cogitans, mental realm, literally thinking thing, and in Latin, res extensa, realm of physical matter, literally extended thing. What is the relation between them? This is the problem of the relationship between spirit and matter, or in a narrower sense, as applied to human being, the problem of psychophysical parallelism. Let's consider the concept of substance. One of the key concepts in ontology is the concept of substance. The word substance, translated from Latin, means the underlying or lying in the fundament. That is, a substance is that which underlies everything. The substance exists independently, by itself. Substance is something stable and constant, in contrast to accidents or properties of a substance, which are changeable and transient, and exist in the other, that is, in substance, and through the other, that is, through substance. In the idealistic conceptions, substance is understood as some kind of spiritual principle. In the materialistic conceptions, on the contrary, substance is understood as the material. Substance has attributes and modes. This is another important question in ontology. Question about what are the attributes of a substance and what are the modes of a substance. Attributes are the inalienable properties of the substance. Modes are transient, temporary properties of the substance. The main attributes of spiritual substance or spirit include consciousness, goal setting, freedom, and creativity, while the main attributes of material substance or matter are movement, space, and time. There are other issues in ontology, in addition to these fundamental questions. Among them, the relationship between the whole and the part, the one and many, the discrete and the continuous, the finite and the infinite, the possible and the actual, the real and the virtual. Let's take a look at some of them. Let's consider 4 antinomies of pure reason proposed by Immanuel Kant. Antinomy is a contradiction in pure reason that arises due to the fact that laws by which pure reason is arranged lead it to equiprobable but mutually exclusive statements. There are 4 antinomies. The first about finitism and infinitism, the second about merism and holism, the third one about theism and atheism, and the last one, fourth, is about indeterminism and determinism. Let's consider each of them. The first antinomy about finitism and infinitism. Thesis or positive statement. The world has a beginning in time and is also limited in space. This is position of finitism. Antithesis, opposite statement. The world has no beginning in time and boundaries in space. It is infinite in both time and space. The second antinomy about merism and holism. Thesis or positive statement. Every complex substance in the world consists of simple parts, and in general there is only simple or that which is made up of the simple. This is position of merism, from meros, part. Antithesis. or opposite negative statement. No one complex thing in the world consists of simple parts, and in general there is nothing simple in the world. This is position of holism. The third antinomy, about indeterminism and determinism. Thesis or positive statement. According to the laws of nature, causality is not the only causality from which all phenomena in the world can be derived. To explain the phenomena, it is also necessary to accept three causality. This is position of indeterminism. Antithesis, the contrary statement. There is no freedom. Everything is done in the world only according to the laws of nature. That is, it is position of determinism. And the fourth antinomy is about theism and atheism. Thesis, the absolutely necessary essence belongs to the world either as a part of it or as its cause. This is position of theism. That is statement about existence of God. Antithesis or opposite negative statement. Now here is there any absolutely necessary essence, neither in the world nor outside the world, as its cause. This is position of atheism. So let's take a look on variants of answer in ontology about finitism and infinitism. Finitism has two kinds, spatial finitism and temporal finitism. And infinitism also have two forms, spatial infinitism and temporal infinitism. Spatial infinitism states that world is finite in its extension. Spatial infinitism states that the world is infinite in its extension. According temporal finitism, time is finite in the past, that is, it has a beginning, but does not have an end. Or time is finite both in the past and in the future. There are two kinds of temporal finitism. And temporal infinitism states that time is eternal and has no beginning or end. Let's consider the second problem of the relation of the whole and part. It's about holism and merism, two positions, opposite points of view. According holism, the whole precedes the part and is something bigger and qualitatively different in relation to the part. The word holism originates from the Greek holos, means whole, and the opposite position merism. The word merism originates from the Greek meros, that is part, fraction. According merism, the part precedes the whole, that is, the whole is secondary to the parts, made up of them, and being their sum depends on them in its quality. Let's consider the problem of causality. Determinism and indeterminism. Determinism states that there are no freedom of will, while indeterminism keep the place for the freedom of will. Determinism is the doctrine of the universal interconnection and interdependence of phenomena and processes of reality. Determinism assumes the existence of the principle of causality and universal physical laws in the world. The opposite view, indeterminism, is a philosophical position according to which there is no objective, that is, causal relationship independent of individual consciousness. Let's consider the next problem in ontology, the problem of the relationship between the possible and the actual. Actuality is present being, in which certain possibilities are realized. Possibility is the immanent ability in objects to be in a different state or location than it is at the moment, under the influence of internal or external influences. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz has distinguished two kinds of possibility: an absolute possibility and hypothetical possibility. An absolute possibility is each of an infinite set of different, unrealized in reality, possible worlds or universes that God created in his mind and from which he is free to choose any world for realization. Our world has become real because it is the best of all possible worlds, and this is known to God since he is creator of time. A hypothetical possibility is any alternative to the path of the development of each of the systems or objects within our realized real world or universe, which is the best of all possible worlds. The problem of the nature of space and time can be transformed into a question: what by its nature is space and what is time? This problem is related to many other issues, including the following. Is space and time finite? Is there an actual infinity of space? Which is primary, the discrete or the continuous? What is the primary, order or chaos? Is there movement and multiplicity? How energy and information relate to each other? And here you can see the scheme of the types of conceptions about the nature of space and time. There are objective and objectivistic and subjectivistic conceptions. And objectivistic conceptions divided on two kinds, substantial and relational. Let's consider objectivistic conceptions. Space and time, according to these type of conceptions, exist independently of the consciousness of a subject or an observer. On the contrary, subjectivistic conceptions state that space and time are just attributes of the way of organizing the subjective world of an observer and they do not exist independently. Objectivistic conceptions of the nature of space and time can be divided on two kinds, substantial and relational. According to substantial conceptions, space and time are substances independent from each other and from the consciousness of the subject. To substantial conceptions relate conceptions of Plato and Isaac Newton. According to relational conceptions, space and time is the ratio of places, of objects, and the ratio or sequence of events. This is mutual relationship of places and moments in time. This is conceptions of Aristotle and Leibniz. And subjectivistic conceptions of space and time The authors of these conceptions are Aurelius Augustine, George Berkeley, and Immanuel Kant. According to Aurelius Augustine, time exists only in the spiritual world of man. According to George Berkeley and Ernst Mach, space and time are forms of ordered series of sensations. And according to Immanuel Kant, space and time are a priori forms of sensory contemplation and do not exist independently of it. Thank you for your attention.